But some people do get better, surprisingly better, with social stimulation and connection.
Right.
I remember
appropriate stimulation, nurturing, and nutrition for infants and young children. Because if your brain won't let
that kind of stimulation versus kids who don't, you're baking in the...
But if we want quality ideas to come out of all that stimulation, we need to build in time to
passes on in the world becomes clear. So what if it is that transcranial magnetic stimulation or drugs or
change physiologically and functionally as a result of stimulation. So now
what it basically means, if there's not enough stimulation, you're bored, you're not paying a whole lot of attention.
That absence of stimulation where the quieter things that go on in your mind can come to the fore.
what that is?
So transcranial magnetic stimulation, it almost looks like one of those, the mirrors, you know, those lights that dentists...
Because they need that social stimulation, they need to be with big...
by deprivation. And when I say deprivation, I mean an environment that's lacking in consistent cognitive stimulation, interactions with adults, and...
We removed some of your external stimulation by closing your eyes.
Movements. So it's called functional electrical stimulation. So what they're able to do, even with electrodes, both for recording and stimulation, you can really convince
the patient is still in a pretty deep coma, doing some stimulation to try to help get them out of.
Some neuroscientists have been using transcranial stimulation, which is passing electrons.
We've studied it. It's called transcranial magnetic stimulation, and it can move your limbs.
It's really a stimulation of leptin, right? So we know that any dietary
where the medical community is on, what's a good idea for what levels of stimulation you should have, how often.
Some people may take drugs. Some people may do transcranial magnetic stimulation of the brain. There are many different...
with very little in terms of stimulation and absolutely no
and stimulation and protection that a child gets in a family. And we see this particularly with babies.
Called transcranial magnetic stimulation that Lara Boyd is using in our center. We put somebody in this app.
Person.
Deep brain stimulation, or DBS, is essentially
head and seeing the stimulation, hearing it has been very, very
which leads to a checkpoint effect and the stimulation of the immune system.
When it comes to just visual stimulation, and at the same time,
mercury comes off fillings every time you stimulate them, and that stimulation causes the mercury to continue.
Over stimulation, we often forget and don't pay attention to how much we are daily nourished by the sacredness of.
We really need to put ourselves in environments that have the proper amount of stimulation for us.
for any walk of life, it's hard to put your life on hold. So that managing that stimulation, for instance,
in terms of the visual stimulation and going to museums and galleries and having friends who are.
This is on the market. One is called transcranial magnetic stimulation. It's a device that's repercussions